you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad. So let's jump straight in. Why don't you just let everyone know kind of your story and what you went through and how this all kind of started for you?
Yeah, my story actually started probably a few years ago. I had like a niggling pain in my groin. Um, all of a sudden came out of nowhere, but I didn't look too much into it. And then the more I continued to play football, or soccer, I guess you can call it, it just started getting worse, and I would experience a really excruciating pain afterwards, particularly. Um, so after like a few more weeks of training, and I kept feeling this pain, I would I realized that it was something quite serious. So I wanted to go check it out. Checked it out, and it was diagnosed as adductor tendonitis. So I rehabbed that for a few weeks. Um, wasn't getting better, so I got an MRI, and he told me I had OP, Osteitis Pubis. Um, so I rehabbed. So he told what he told me, the guy, was 3 months of rest, and then you'll be fine. No football for 3 months, and just that's it. So I did that. I actually went to a physio and did rehab along with it, which was probably better than what I've heard other people experience with resting OP, but I still didn't get better. So then I went to I was playing in America at the time for college, and I was recommended to see a specialist in the States, and he did another MRI on me, and he said I needed surgery. So I ended up getting the surgery just based on the commitment I made with my team and whatnot, and I was kind of forced, felt like that was the right decision at the time. So I had surgery and rehab from that, and then I was back playing. So I was playing without pain for 2 years, um, and it felt good. I just had a few maintenance things to do, but it felt good. And then about 2 months ago, as I was training every day regularly back in England, um, I felt a similar niggling pain in my groin again, and I was a little concerned at first, but at the same time, I kind of brushed it aside because I thought, I've had the surgery. It can't be the OP, can't be back again, and all this, that, the other. So I went to go see a physio again, and he said that there was nothing wrong with me in terms of there was no groin strain, there was nothing like that. And at that point, it probably made me more concerned because I realized this was similar to what happened the first time, where there wasn't really much to diagnose in terms of on a physical diagnosis. And I just kind of felt the pain was quite similar. So I kind of knew something was wrong. And I trained a couple more times, and then I knew straight away it was the same pain I had the first time, which was like a dull, aching pain after I trained. And one of the main things, sorry, that I would notice was that I wouldn't be able to sprint as I trained. I would always be held back to like sprint whenever I wanted to train or play or whatever it was. So at that point, I knew I'd come back and did some search online and came across the OP clinic. So that's kind of where I started my rehab and my journey back.
Um, it must have been pretty must have completely freaked you out to kind of like have a surgery and then to start feeling it like coming on. What was your headspace like at that point?
Yeah, to be honest, initially I lost my head completely. I was just thinking because obviously not only like financially I had to pay for the surgery, but also um, I thought there was kind of that was it, done and dusted. I was back playing, and I remember everything that went through the first time, which was like um, a year. I was roughly a year without playing in total because my pre-rehab before the surgery and then rehab after the surgery and stuff like that. So I was just thinking, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to go through that again. How am I gonna have surgery again? That can't be. I don't think it's worth it. Obviously, I'm pursuing a career in football, soccer, so started questioning that and thinking, maybe this is it, what for me and whatnot. So yeah, I was kind of really concerned and my head was all over the place. But at the same time, I was still trying to stay optimistic because I had the surgery. So I kind of thought, worst case scenario, it's just like a quick fix somehow, but it's not going to be the same because I fixed the problem and all that. But um, yeah, once I started feeling the OP again, that's when I started to get a lot more concerned. But luckily,
Yeah.
I did find you quite quickly though. So when I came across you, I was kind of like, okay, finally, um, there's something here. Because I remember when I first had it, I probably did the same research online, but there was nothing really out there. Um, so I was kind of thinking. Now I kind of think, where were you 2 years ago? You should have started this up earlier.
What's funny is that I was online, but I was so buried in like search results at that point that like, and the web, like
Impossible.
it was part of the physical clinic I had. It was so buried, like it was on I think like the fourth page of like Google results, and I wasn't like
Oh wow.
I'd done it with like a few clients, but I hadn't really like I'd started
Yeah.
doing it and I'd like got a few clients, but it was very like I was still working majority in the physical clinic and just treating other people, treating normal conditions and not doing just OP. And yeah, and people would find me, and it was always like if I got someone who actually found me, it was like, man, that person must have just like gone through like 55 pages for OP, and they would always be like, they'd be like, I've read the entire internet, and you're the only person who actually writes anything about it, who doesn't just say the same thing over and over again. So
Yeah.
I was there. It's just like I was literally so buried that it was impossible to find me. What was I gonna say? All right, cool. So like when you jumped on, we had a session and stuff. We chatted about like the OP and things like that. Um, what did you find kind of different about my approach to say and the approach you have to take into to working in this program and say what you've been doing previously and even just kind of like how maybe I like my way of tackling the condition say versus what your experience has been with like medical field and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, our first session, when you explained the whole condition of OP and what it was, and how you go about fixing it, it really just made sense. It just clicked, and that was the main thing. Like what you were saying, really, resonated with me, and it made sense about the movement patterns and how obviously you fix the movement patterns, you fix the problem because your body's moving a certain way, which is causing stress on the adductor and whatnot. And obviously you explain it in a lot better detail, but it made a lot more sense. I mean, because when I was diagnosed initially with OP, he just said I have OP. He didn't really say what it was. I think he might have said it's an inflammation, or something like that, and he didn't really talk about how to treat it. So it was a lot. It was quite refreshing to hear, to understand the condition a lot more, which did help as you approach the rehab because you're kind of, what I mean, know how it works and whatnot. So that was the main thing I think for me, was that it just made sense before starting. Yeah.
So when you jumped in, you started like working on the exercises and watching the bazillion videos and stuff like that. How did you find it like in terms of the information and like all the work and stuff like that? How did you find it? How did you manage it? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess luckily for me is because I train and I play full time. It was my only thing to worry about at the time. I didn't have any other distractions. I could really just focus on the rehab. So initially, obviously, like it was a lot of information to take in. I remember the first few videos I was watching, I was just obviously I was committed and I was dedicated to watching them and stuff. But like I said, it was a lot of information to take in, but it was just making sense, and I was kind of excited to start the process. So to be honest, initially, I think the first week is a lot of like very I don't know if tedious is the right word, but exercises which are,
No, they're
I mean, quite
tedious.
slow, really easy to do in a sense. Maybe easy is not the right word, but they're not very challenging in terms of physically challenging or stuff like that. So I think that's a bit of a challenge mentally to get through. But I remember telling myself from the beginning was just to trust the process and obviously believe that it was going to work and just kind of follow it step by step and obviously listen to you. And that was my main thing, was just, even though you might not think why, oh, I'm doing this breathing exercise right now, how is this going to fix my groin or my OP? Or I'm doing these really slow deadlifts with no weight, or I'm just connecting my feet to the ground or whatever it is. And you're thinking, how is this? And initially, little thoughts come in your mind where you're thinking, is this really going to work? But then from the beginning, I just kept telling myself, even though you might not think it is, it's going to work. Just believe it and just trust the process. I guess that's what I was doing from the beginning. So, yeah, that was kind of the first feeling I had when I started watching the videos and started the exercises.
Well, the thing that always kind of came across, like, was that it was like you always knew exactly, like, it's like you had watched, like, I knew you'd always done everything. One, because, like, so if I open up, like, the folders on the Google Drive, right, to see, like, the videos that have been uploaded, you've never missed one session. Like, you've literally always gotten all your videos in every single time, like, every single folder is filled, kind of thing.
Yeah,
People will kind of always ask me, like, oh, well, like, what can I do doing more? Like, what can I be like, kind of thing? And it's kind of like just never miss a session. Just like never miss a video, never miss a session. Like, never let something go that you like kind of understand it when you don't understand it, but you kind of understand it. You're just like okay with it. Like every time it kind
right,
of came back, it was either like you understood everything, or if you didn't, you always emailed me. You'd be like, I don't get this. Like, or like
right,
I tried to understand this. I don't get this. So it was like
right.
you never left any room for error, if that makes sense. It was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
there was never a flaw. So it was kind of like even when stuff came up that was like difficult, or say something just didn't go right, or like, something hurt or something like that, because you'd like ticked all the boxes, it was always kind of like, oh, cool, you've done all the basics. So this problem is like a little bit more complex, so it's not covered in the videos or something like that. But it's like, oh, that's easy to
right,
treat. Like you've dealt with every other possible issue that it could be. So now I can just be like, oh, okay, cool. I can look at this and not worry that, oh, you're not connecting your foot to the ground properly, or you're not engaging your glutes correctly. It's like, oh, you're doing all of that. Oh, but you've got a unique issue where your hip doesn't twist quite as much as it needs to. Oh, cool. Like, I can talk you through that in a session now. That's easy. Like, I don't have to be
right, right.
like, well, you're just not connecting your feet to the ground. You need to do that. You should be doing that by now. That's why you're struggling and why it's hurting, kind of thing. You kind of always tick the boxes off, which I think always
Yeah.
put you in such a good position to kind of take advantage of everything. What was I going to say? Like, just talk about some of like the difficult points that you had. Because there were a few parts where you kind of like where things hurt or things didn't kind of work well, but you just worked through them so well. Like, do any stick out in your
Yeah,
mind?
I think a big one was like, well, first of all, just to say, I think a lot with the progression that you talked about was to do with, I was always excited to like get an exercise right, and I always wanted to like do it correctly, and I think like that kind of motivated me to like move on to the next exercise because I wanted to like, it was more of like a challenge. I saw it as a challenge to really like get the exercises right and stuff, and I knew by doing that it would obviously help my OP, but obviously there were challenges like I think I struggled a lot with the like feeling. I think like especially like the activation of my glutes, um, and the sensation, which I, to be honest, even now isn't unbelievable, but it's a lot better than it was. And I think feeling this activation of my glutes and making sure that, I don't know what you called it. What do you call it? The feeling of, I guess, body awareness.
Oh,
Uh,
kinesthesia.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
the body awareness and stuff like that. I think I struggled with a lot, but I just really concentrated. I remember you telling me to like really focus on it and go really slowly, and like if you think you feel something, I remember that sticking in my mind. If you think you feel something, you probably are, even though it's the smallest thing. And I remember just the more I focused on it, which I think is a big thing I took away, was paying attention to your body when you do the exercises, just moving so slowly that you don't miss anything, um, which I think is massive. So yeah, I would just really slow myself down on the exercises and focus all my energy onto trying to feel my glutes activate, and then take it from there, really. Um,
It's always really interesting working with professional athletes because you're like your entire life you've been bigger, faster, stronger, like just better than everyone, right? Like, and then as you get older, like that gets less and less as you meet more and more people who are at your level. But like from a very small child, you're probably better than all your friends, and like no one had to kind of like tell you like, oh, this is how you need to like do this and stuff like that. You just got it. Like that's what made you good. You
right,
just kind of
right,
get it.
right.
It can be so hard to like dial it back, especially like, as you get higher, the thing that allows you, when you're 16 to play at a higher level when your friends stop and like keep going is like you probably could train harder than all your friends, and you were able to like ignore your body, ignore your pain, and just keep pushing, so you could get better and better as everyone started to catch up with you, kind of thing. Like, and it's
Yeah.
like this perfect recipe for disaster in a way, because it makes it the harder you push, the more you have to ignore your body when you feel pain. Like when you're tired, when you're fatigued, you got to be like, nah, if I want to do this for the rest of my life, I've got to learn to push. I've got to learn to like keep running
Right.
even if I don't want to run. It's like the perfect recipe to be like, ignore your body and ignore what you're feeling to kind of get through stuff. And so it's like, it's such a, like, it can be such a hard departure for a lot of people to just kind of be like, okay, now I've got to like pay attention to my body and stuff that my whole life I just haven't had to think about. But like I just did, like I was just good at kicking the ball, and now all of a sudden I got to like break down my kick and like
Yeah.
try and focus on what
Yeah.
part I'm feeling when, and kind of like it's like it can be really really tough and really difficult. And that body awareness stuff you're talking about, that can really derail people sometimes, because it's kind of it's such a different way to think about exercising, to kind of be like, and that was the thing with you, like your form was like perfect, and then it would be like, oh hey, can you feel that in your glutes? And it's kind of like, I don't know, can I be like, kind of
Yeah.
going, it like being like, it's great that you look the right way, but until it feels right, it's like it's not worth anything. Like it has to feel right for you, kind of thing. Like that can be hard because it's kind of the opposite of the way you train like your whole life.
Of course. Yeah.
um, but like you did it really, really well, and the thing that I always hope will happen with this kind of stuff is that kind of awareness will hopefully allow you to figure out ways to be a better player as well. Kind of be like, oh, okay, if I can feel my glutes when I'm sprinting, maybe I can be a fraction of a second faster to the ball, and like, oh, if I can like really get my obliques to control as I kick through the ball, maybe I'm going to get more control on how much it spins through the air and stuff like that. And my hope is always that
Right. Right.
it goes to the next level, so that it then just becomes a part of
Yeah.
how
You can.
you interact with the game. So you don't have to like think of it as this like, oh, I'm going to do this to stay strong, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to do this to be a better athlete, and in the process, it'll make sure that I don't get hurt again, kind of thing.
Yeah. No. Definitely.
So what were some of like the actual fun bits? What were some of the bits where you're like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like I'm kind of enjoying this a little bit.
The fun bits, I think, obviously it'd be different for everyone, kind of which exercises um, they liked and stuff. But I think for me, obviously the fun bit would be like when I'd be doing the exercises without any pain. Number one, I wouldn't feel any pain, and then I would feel what clicked for me was when I would feel better after doing exercises. So I'll be like, go to the gym, whatever, do the exercises. Let's say they were like the medicine ball exercises or whatnot, which I enjoyed. I would feel like that next day or the day I would just be walking around or whatever, doing whatever, and I'll just be feeling great. And that's when I'll be like, okay, wow, like this stuff actually, not, that wasn't when I thought, okay, this stuff works, but it was kind of like, yeah,
the
this stuff,
the proof's in the
this is
pudding, though.
working.
Like you can watch as much as you want, and you can kind of see as much as you want, but as you actually do stronger things and you feel it, right? There's no better proof,
Right.
like kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah, like
And I do think that is a key thing which I took out of it was um, how to like the pain relief is actually like the best way to relieve the pain really is to do exercises. Um, Obviously specific ones, but that's what I didn't really. I was always under the impression, obviously, that rest is the best key thing to do. But as I was going through the exercises, I noticed that certain things I would just feel great afterwards, and starting feeling stronger during and whatnot. So I think that was probably the funnest times for me when I would be feeling great. What else? Let me think. So obviously it was a few weeks ago, so I'm trying to recall kind of every step I took. But yeah, I think I would enjoy like conquering an exercise, I guess you could say. So doing it correctly and then sending it to you, and then you saying like, yeah, that looks great. I'll get like a little buzz out of that. Do you know what I mean? So
no, like
I think that was probably the best thing.
I totally get that. Like I've always wanted to try and figure out a way to make it so it's like a kind of like a video game kind of. Like I've always wanted to kind of make it so that it's kind of like you got levels and you got to like pass levels and like push on and stuff.
Yeah,
It's funny, right?
yeah,
Like you're doing it to get better. So like you're doing it to get back on the field and stuff, but that can be at the beginning, so far away from the end, right? Like
Right.
anything in life, right? Like your end goal is always so far from what like the beginning is, if it's a goal worth chasing, kind of thing. And so it can be
Right.
like so hard, like if you don't have like little things that keep you going along the way, you just like it's too far away for that to be your only
That's
motivation.
true.
Like that's the
True.
reason you do it, but you need little things along the way, right? Like I've always wanted to find a way to make it so it's like you can
Yeah.
get little like points along the way for yourself, so you can feel like you're making progress and it feels fun, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Then you get swept up in that a little bit, and then you're like, oh, I'm already halfway. Like, oh, cool. Like it's not
Yeah.
that far to
Yeah.
go, kind of thing. Um, but yeah, like, I've always wanted to make it like that, and that's how I hope it is, and that's kind of how I operate as well. So like, I always kind of like, it's like, oh, finally, I can do that one thing that I couldn't do. At the moment, I'm trying to learn how to
Yeah.
dance.
Yeah.
It's not fun, and I'm trying to find those little things. It's really hard when you just look stupid when you record yourself. But it's like if you can't find those little things, you just cannot keep going. There's like it's
Yeah.
that the end goal is seems too impossible to get to, kind of thing. What was I gonna say? Why don't you tell? So you played recently. Why don't you tell people what it was like to kind of be back on the field and just to play and stuff, and then how you feel in your body?
Yeah. I think a big moment for me was when did complete. I completed the. Well, I was at either the final stage or the last stage of the rehab program. I was already back running, um, and then you told me to go and train. So I remember going to train, and I remember as I was training, the first time and throughout the whole process, obviously you're managing sort of, you still have some sort of discomfort within the area, which comes and goes, obviously depending on your exercises you do and how you feel and stuff like that. But um, I remember training, and I think it was like majority mental, but I felt like the first time I trained, I felt like my groin was like really tight, and I felt like something there, and I was just like, initially I felt like defeated because I was just like, oh my gosh, everything I've done for this past however long hasn't worked, or I was just thinking like, oh my goodness, I got to start from square one. Maybe it's like I wasn't doing the exercises properly, or I started like blaming myself a little bit, um, and whatnot. So then I was a little concerned, but so I emailed you straight away. I remember, and you were just like, yeah, that's normal. Like, uh, don't worry about that. Like, it'll get better the more you train, and keep like trying to do like some exercises after post training and whatnot, just to kind of like realign yourself. So I did that, and then as you said, every time I trained, that kind of discomfort just got a lot, kept going away, um, and then to the point where it went away completely. And obviously mentally, like the struggles I had mentally when I was playing, which I felt were holding me back, they were gone as well. Because I remember you telling me to like, just the OP's fixed, so don't stress about re-injuring it. Just kind of like you have to kind of push through your mental barriers that you have with certain movements and whatnot. So I remember just going into training and thinking like, don't worry about any pain or discomfort. Just kind of just play fully to your capacity and just push through. And then after I did that, mentally I overcame it, and then physically, the more I trained, there was less pain. And now, like, I trained today, for example, and had zero discomfort, and now have nothing. I didn't feel any discomfort afterwards. So I felt great, and yeah, I mean, yeah, it feels great. So
It's funny, like because like if you think about it, like my attitude is always like train in rehab, in training, do things that are way worse than you're gonna do like in your normal life, right? Like jump with balls side to
yeah,
side that are super heavy, and like and sprint up hills and just do whatever's worse, right? But nothing changes like the fear and the like like it's like trauma, right? Like you went through trauma on the field when you got hurt, and it's like there's all this like built up like fear and expectations. It's like, if you're bullied at school and you go back to that school again, like you can't help but feel it a little bit. It's like this
yeah,
environmental stress. And there's no way to get around it. Like you have to kind of like go through it. And the thing I always like, I feel about like the whole process that's important. It's like there's so much lack of knowledge. There's just so much like misinformation and poor treatment or less than adequate treatment a lot of the time, and just like a lot of things like surgery being thrown around and stuff like that. And to me, it's kind of like there's all this fear, this doubt, and this misknowledge, and that creates more anxiety. And then that anxiety makes you feel more pain, and it's just like a horrible cycle because your body's
Yeah.
genuinely concerned that it doesn't know what's going wrong, and that everything you're going to do is going to make it worse. And it's kind of like if you can just replace that with cold logic, like this happens because of this. When I'm on the field, I am moving and running the way that I've been training to run, which is in good form. So therefore, I know I'm moving well and that I'm not aggravating the OP. And even if I am, I know what I need to do to kind of make it better afterwards, and I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I like I've put the work in. Therefore, I logically know and understand that I don't need to be so worried about this pain. It's like
Right.
your brain can kind of go, okay, cool, I can ignore or fight through this now because I have the logic. Like I always want it to be like that. Like replace the fear,
Yeah.
replace the anxiety with just cold, hard logic and facts, so that you don't have to
No,
worry.
it makes sense, and I think even when you told me to think about what I was doing in my rehab, how it was like so challenging compared to what I just like running on a field per se. I remember even doing like the plyos, so jumping side to side with weight and on one foot, and then just twisting and turning and like the agility ladder and stuff like that. I mean, the fact that I was doing that without any pain or mentally nothing holding me back there, you know what I mean? I just took that kind of onto the pitch and kind of helped me get through it because I realized that, hang on a minute, I was actually doing all this challenging stuff, you know what I mean? So I shouldn't be having a problem on the field anyway.
It's
But yeah,
weird.
no,
It's weird, right? Because like it's like you can get it in, like you get it intellectually right, but it's funny how it has to like you have to go through it like for a bunch of training sessions before your body starts to actually believe it. It's like you can believe it completely intellectually, and then there's always this lag time while your body's like starts to actually
exactly, yeah,
trust you
yeah,
again.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really it's such a like the human body is just such a wonderful and unique and just endlessly fascinating thing in the way that it operates and the way that it works. But yeah, it's always funny. Like even like sometimes like people will do an exercise and they'll be like, "Oh, that hurts," and I'll always be like, "No, no, 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 that's really good," because like you're doing a movement that hurts, and now you can specifically teach your body how to do that again without hurting. So it's like figuring
right,
out one more piece of the puzzle of how to move without creating your
right,
OP. It's like sometimes the pain is good, like it's telling you where the mistake is so you can fix it. But it's so weird because the minute you feel the pain, your brain is just going to immediately go to the worst place possible. It's like, oh, how am I ever going to get better? How is this ever going to get better? It's still there. It's never going to get better. Rather than it being like, oh, actually, cool. It's letting me know right now. Like to me, the worst pain or the most annoying pain is the one that comes afterwards. So it's like, now you're telling me that you're bothered and annoyed. Like,
yeah,
what
yeah,
am I going to do about it now? Like,
yeah,
you could have told me when I was on the field, kind of thing. And at least that could have changed how I was running or how I was kicking. But yeah, it's funny like how your perception of pain will change once you can kind of make it your own and use it for your own kind of thing.
yeah,
All right. Last question: if anyone's watching this and kind of going through the same thing that you kind of went through, what would you want them to understand? What do you think? Like what was really important that you used or the tip or the skill that you used that allowed you to kind of
yeah.
get through this kind of thing?
I think so first of all, I think just you need to trust the process and kind of like believe from the beginning that it's gonna work, regardless of what you go through. And you might feel pain some days, and some days might be challenging. Just keep telling yourself it's gonna work because it's worked. There's proof in the pudding that it has worked for so many people, and you just got to keep telling yourself that it's gonna work. So I think that's the main thing. I think just to keep get you through it as from the beginning, um, which was key for me. I think also would be an important thing to do would, I guess, try not to have a timeline on it, and think like I'm gonna be back. So I remember I kind of did that, which I think if I hopefully never have to do it again, but if I were to go through the process, I would kind of just leave it open ended in the sense that I'll be back when I'm back, really, rather than thinking, okay, I'm in 8 weeks or however long it was I had in my head that I wanted to get back. I think helps if you just kind of leave it kind of open-ended, just kind of go about it day by day. And I think the main thing is like it's not easy, but it's not. I think everyone can dedicate an hour a day fully invested into the rehab, and I think as long as during that hour or however long you have, because I mean you don't need a lot of space, you don't need a lot of equipment, obviously only the ones that you say, but I think if you can dedicate that hour fully invested into it and just realize, obviously I know you say at least an hour, so the more the better, but if you can do that and just take it day by day and just think you're going to get better and just that it actually is working, and then obviously get your videos in as soon as possible. I would say have all the equipment ready before the sessions and all that kind of stuff, but I think you just got to commit yourself for the next however long in your head and just think, I'm going to work on this and fully and just be 100% in. I think is the main thing. If there's anything else I can think of, yeah, I think you just got to, the main thing, like I keep saying it, you just got to trust the process and believe in it, because it does work. And it's going to be tough at times, and there's going to be times when you think like your head's kind of all over the place or you kind of get a setback, but then just email Jason and he'll reassure you that everything's on track. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Maj.
No worries. No, it's been a pleasure.
That was
Thanks,
awesome.
thanks obviously thanks for all your help.